All right, follow that. I dare you. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. So again, I say Happy Father's Day to all of the men here who are fathers, to the women who have stepped over and into that role in their children's lives or in other children's lives, and to the guys here who maybe don't have kids but who have stepped into that role in other ways for other people. The word father, it's a big word. Now, Father's Day is a really interesting one, I have to say, in many ways. We have, and I'm going to qualify this, I think more often it seems like there's this age difference. Like those of us that are like over 35, maybe over 40, we have sort of complex relationships with our dad, or who he was. And it's funny, I spend a lot of time looking for good stories to share with you, and stories with messages and things that I can make funny or, about my friend Jack. But when I try to find stories for Father's Day, all that's out there are these like sad and angsty and terrible, and it is really hard to find. So I know that my experience of complicated relationship with father is not alone. I also know that that whole idea of like the father knows best dad seems to be disappearing from our lexicon. The guy who kind of just goes to work and never says anything and doesn't really participate. And what I see in men now, and what I see changing in our society and changing how our kids are, is this greater involvement of dads in their lives. Like when I look around this room, that dad is the one that's present here. It's kind of different. And I know that there's a few of us here who like had that relationship with our dad, and I know that you understand what I'm talking about because you have friends who didn't. So the one thing the one thing I did find actually was written by Irma Bombeck, of all people. And I'm not even going to make this about my friend Jack. I'm just going to share it with you. She wrote an article called "What Does a Father Do?" And she says that she received a letter from a single mother who had raised a son who was about to become a dad. Since he had no recollection of his own father, her question to me was, what do I tell him a father does? Now, when my dad died, she says, in her ninth year, she too was raised by her mother, giving rise to the same question, what do fathers do? She said, as far as I could observe, they brought around the car when it rained so everyone else could stay dry. They always took the family pictures, which is why they were never in them. They carved turkeys on Thanksgiving, kept the car gassed up, weren't afraid to go into the basement, mowed the lawn, and tightened the clothesline to keep it from sagging. She's older than we are. She says, it wasn't until my husband and I had children that I was able to observe firsthand what a father contributed to a child's life. What did he do to deserve his children's respect? He rarely fed them or did anything about their sagging diapers or wiping their noses or fannies. So what did he do? He threw them higher than his head until they were weak from laughter. He cast the deciding vote on the puppy debate. He listened more than he talked. He let them make mistakes. Moms are not good at letting kids make mistakes. He let them make mistakes. He allowed them to fall from their first two-wheeler without having a heart attack. He read a newspaper while they were trying to parallel park a car for the first time in preparation for their driving test. If I had to tell someone's son what a father really does that is important, it would be that he shows up for the job in good times and bad times. He's a man who is constantly being observed by his children. They learn from him how to handle adversity, anger, disappointment, and success. He won't laugh at their dreams, no matter how impossible they might seem. He will dig out at 1 a.m. when one of his children runs out of gas. He will make unpopular decisions and stand by them. When he is wrong and makes a mistake, he'll admit it. He sets the tone for how family members treat one another, members of the opposite sex, and people who are different than they are. By example, he can instill a desire to give something back to the community when its needs are greater than theirs. But mostly, a good father involves himself in his kids' lives. The more responsibility he has for a child, the harder it is for the child to walk out of his life. A father has the potential to be a powerful force in the life of a child. Grab it. Maybe you'll get a greeting card for your efforts, maybe you won't, but it's steady work. It is work. You know, parenting, it's work. I didn't really know that till the last few years, but wow, do I know it. And you know what's funny? I kind of struggled this week. You know, we picked the movie The Incredibles for Father's Day, which is a movie that I really love. And I thought, well, that's going to be easy. And then I tried to merge it with Father's Day in a not predictable way, because it seemed like a place that could get really predictable, and I don't like to be predictable. But I kept coming up with these large blank spaces, sitting with my computer in my lap for 2 hours at a time. And I realized, frankly, that it is the perspective that I was coming from, that I kept trying to come from, just is really hard for me to speak to. And that's because I was really trying to come from this male experience of parenting, and that's just not my experience. So I can speculate and I can make guesses and probably, you know, sound reasonably intelligent about it. But I also realized in the midst of this conversation in my head this week that I come at that with lenses that look at the world from a place that says that, you know, I honestly have, and remember when I say this, that this is the journey of my talk, and this is our starting place. That, you know, I believe that if you were born male in this country, and particularly if you're born white male and white straight male, you kind of have it made. Like, that's the easy road. So I have this idea in my consciousness, and then I'm watching the movie with Bob, who is Mr. Incredible, and I'm watching him go from this like super strong, go get him, go fix everything, feel good about himself, have the world feel good about him place, to this guy who is forced to hide who he really is in some humdrum job because he has come to believe that that is what he has to do to take care of his family. And it got me thinking about this belief that we still hold on to in the world, in contrast to my belief that these guys have it made. You know, and I think that this is changing. It's one of those things that is changing as relationships have become more balanced between men and women. But we live in a society that still has sort of this norm in our consciousness that, that it is the man's job to provide for the family. And I would guess when things are good and money's flowing and you love your job and all of that's moving along really great, that's probably kind of just like, yeah, that's the way it is, and it's not a big deal. But when things are hard, or when you get laid off, and this is a conversation I had a number of times with guys, you know, a few years ago when the economy took a crash, that, or with guys who really don't like what they're doing anymore and would like to make a change in it, but they can't, they don't feel like they can, that idea, that thing that is in the back of someone's mind, of it's my job to take care of my family, has to sometimes really feel like a burden. And I never hear I never hear guys complain about that, though. You know, it's like, it's just how it is. It's just how it is. And I think, wow, you know, maybe my idea that guys just kind of have it made is not so correct in that, you know? Like, we really put, and now with all of the change in relationships and our expectations of men, like, we still want them to be strong, but now we want them to be sensitive too, and at the right time and in the right place, you know? And we still want them to be manly men, but we never want them to be angry, you know? And that's hard. Testosterone is a fact, you know? That's hard. There's so much about it, this, you know, and when I really get into it, and I still acknowledge, like, you know, I don't know the whole deal, but I do know that the men that I know are trying and working so hard at being good, strong people. And I love them for that. Anyway, Bob, I get a little sensitive about our guys. I love them. So Bob, what he's trying to do his thing. He pushes down every bit of himself that is the incredible guy. And he has to shove that down. He has to try to fit into what I call the common mediocrity. But even in that, in his insurance job, he can't resist but trying to help people. And when he tries to help people, he constantly gets in trouble for that. So he's really unhappy all day long, and then he's really unhappy when he gets home, and he becomes very disconnected from his family and from all of it that's going on. And so he starts to cheat. And he doesn't cheat by running out with another woman, he cheats by sneaking out to do superhero stuff. Not because he wants to be dishonest, but because he has this deep calling to be who he is in the world, and he's afraid of what his wife is going to say about it. Or in this case, the government's gotten involved. So if you haven't seen the movie, it's totally a movie you got to see. So, you know, the thing is, there's been all this stuff in the show about the superheroes, and the masses of people who are not superheroes have sort of forced them to give up their incredibleness, their superhero-ness. And there is, in the midst of that upheaval and change, there's actually, I don't remember if it was a sign or somebody yelled it out or like a thing at a march, but it was, you know, make them be like the rest of us. Make them be like the rest of it. And I thought, well, why is it as a society that when someone really stretches out there and sort of takes a risk to be amazing and does it over and over and over again, why is it that we want to see them fall off that pedestal? You know, that's your take-home question for the day, really, because I don't have a good answer for that. But why is it that we do that? And there's almost, you know, I thought about, okay, what if Jesus, as he was, showed up on this planet now, dressed differently, of course, but what if he showed up now and started doing all this healing work and doing the kind of work and talking to people and trying to create bridges between different groups of people and trying to, you know, create a new way of being and bring more love into the world? Well, I think, well, that would be interesting, because the media and people, you know, would be following him around and analyzing everything he said and tearing it apart and trying to make him less than. And we've kind of gotten into this thing in the world, like when somebody starts, even when people mess up, and I really like Tiger Woods, for instance. Yes, he messed up, but boy, did we go after him for his messing up. Not us personally, I know, but there was a lot of going after him for his messing up. Like, he's not allowed to be human because he's a good golfer. And when you kind of break it down like that, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, really. So anyway, back to Bob. Bob is married to Helen, who is actually Elastigirl. And Elastigirl is a pretty interesting character. But they have 3 kids who also have some very unique and interesting talents that they all have to keep hidden away. Now, Helen has had an easier time doing this, and when I watch it, I think, you know, her taking care of the kids all the time has kind of filled her need to take care of other people and to be, she feels like enough of a superhero, I think, as a mom, so it's easier for her to put that away. And she is more afraid of what is going to happen if they don't keep it under wraps than she is worried about what will happen if they do, at first anyway. So a bunch of stuff happens that I'm not going to describe step by step. But Bob gets back into the superhero business for what he thinks are the right reasons at first. But he kind of thinks they're the right reasons, and you can tell that he's not quite sure that they're the right reasons because he doesn't tell Helen. There's a hint, guys. Right there. But life returns to him. He becomes himself again. He gets back into shape. He plays with his kids. He's happy and engaged, and his relationship with Helen is better until he gets into a jam and all of it. And Helen, of course, has had this feeling that something's going on, and she actually thinks he's having an affair. So she starts trying to figure out what's going on, and he disappears, and she knows he's in trouble. And so Helen goes to see Edna. Now, Edna is the clothing designer who makes superhero suits. And Edna is hilarious. She's like this tall, funny voice. She's like, but she says some very wise things. One of the first things she says is, "I never look back, darling. It distracts from the now." You didn't know I could do that, did you? But Helen is sitting there. She goes to see what she starts to figure. She's thinking he's having an affair. She goes to see Edna, and she's like crying, "What am I going to do? I'm going to lose him." And she's sobbing. And Edna, who in her 3-footness, jumps up on the table, and she walks over and she like slaps her like this. And she was like, "What do you mean, what are you going to do? You are Elastigirl. You are a superhero. What you were going to do," and this is like the most important thing I think I've heard about relationships in a long time. "You will remember who you are, and you will show him that you remember who he is." Now that speaks volumes. And I hope, what I was hoping today, what I thought today was what I can hope for all of us within our relationships, within this community itself, that when we get to a place, when we find ourselves in a place where we kind of lose track of who we are, because we do that sometimes, and you're feeling trapped in sort of the everydayness of life, that there is someone you can turn to who will remind you of just how unique and incredible you are. Every single one of us. And today I really hope that for the men in our community, that when you get stuck in it, when you're stuck in it and you feel like the everydayness of it is grinding you away, because sometimes that happens, that somebody that you can look, there's somebody that you can look at and who will look back at you and you will remember who you are and just how incredible you are. Now, the whole movie sort of speaks to the limitations that we are willing to put on our own gifts for the fear of making other people feel not less than. You know, when we pull ourselves back down, or we pull ourselves down so that we don't intimidate other people, when we hide who we are, when we hide our talents so that other people feel more comfortable. And I thought, you know, really, the best way to honor our gifts, the best way to say thank you to the creator of it all, is to honor those gifts and to live them out loud. Now, Reverend Chris Michaels, who wrote a book called Your Soul's Assignment, wrote, "As a spiritual being, you came into life with a special gift. There's something you can do that no other person can. That gift lies dormant within you, waiting to come forth until you find an outlet for it." In other words, you're not here to make a withdrawal. You're here to make a deposit. You're not here to get something good from life. You're here to give something good to life. You know, so many of us think and spend our time living and thinking that we need to fix ourselves to be good enough to express ourselves, or that we have to make ourselves more spiritual or more aware or prostrate ourselves a little longer, or, you know, whatever it looks like for us. And today I would say that that's not really it. You know, we're actually here to remember who we really are and to honor God, to honor the divine, to honor that energy by living in that gift, and not in an "I'm better than you are" sort of way, because that would be easy, but in an "I'm an amazing gift to this planet, and when I know that about myself, I can also know it about you. I can know that you're an amazing gift, and I don't have to feel intimidated by that, or afraid about that, or worried that it's going to make me less than, because I know that's not possible." You know, it gives us a chance to honor and respect the gifts that everyone brings. And we stop living in fear of what others think and what others do. And I thought, what an incredible world it would be if every one of us woke up tomorrow and started looking at what we are giving instead of what we are getting? Wouldn't it? How would that change everything? And are you willing to be one of the first ones? And I know most of you already do that, but really. So, it really, if you haven't seen the movie, please, it's a good movie. And I didn't give away the ending.